Hello everybody, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to another episode here. My name is Dominic. I'm the host of the Android Factory. Last episode we went ahead and built out this little compose application. If you missed it, I recommend searching the channel to kind of just catch up to it. It's got some good content. It's fully in compose, so it's exciting stuff. But this series here, or these next few videos, are going to be all about GitHub Actions. I've talked about it a little bit before. It's outside the code base, but it is definitely adjacent to the code base, and it's an interesting topic, so I figured I'd make some videos on it. If you're new here, consider subscribing, like the video to help me out. And one interesting thing about GitHub Actions is that it is not necessarily tethered to Android. If you've been following this channel, or even you can tell from the title, this channel predominantly focuses on Android-based content, and GitHub Actions really can run on any GitHub repo, any code, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Android. So we're not going to necessarily dive into too many details, Android-specific details here, so it should be applicable to a wider audience, but just recognize as the videos come out, there are going to be some more Android-specific ones that, maybe you'll have to tweak a little bit here to kind of work for, whatever code base you're dealing with. But anyway, GitHub Actions is a free tool that comes with GitHub repositories, super nice, super cool, centered around the CI/CD world, the continuous integration, continuous deployment world, basically automation around your code. When you click over to the Actions tab here, you'll see some, just like generic landing page if you don't have Actions set up. We're going to go ahead and just configure a simple workflow here, just out of the box stuff. You can do this on any repo that you really want. We'll go ahead and just leave it here, but let's just note one thing. Well, I guess two things, right? We are now adding in a different directory here, the .github/workflows, and we have something called a YAML or YML file. This is basically a unique programming language or syntax that works with scripts, automation, specifically in this case, GitHub Actions. So the reason that I like this example here is that it's not super complicated. It is rather straightforward, and they do a good job here of commenting some things out. So I want to walk through this file with you, and talk these things out. So first things first, we have a name key. I don't know, like whatever this syntax is, some information to actually name the file, and you'll see where this kind of, once we add it to the code base, you'll see where this actually comes from. So let's just go ahead and update this to be test CI, right? So one other key component to a YAML file here, or an action, is specifying when this workflow will run. And so this one here, it gets slightly complicated, but it's not too bad. This one here is saying on a push where the branches are main, or a pull request where the branches are main. So anytime something gets pushed to the main branch, or anytime a pull request is opened into the main branch, this workflow file will actually be automatically triggered for you, and it will run. We are actually going to remove this for the time being, but I just wanted to explain what the syntax is, and instead we're only going to focus on the workflow dispatch so that we can actually run this script manually, and then later videos we will introduce true automation, true CI that will just run itself at the right time. So, we saw some triggers, how you can set up if you want to go into certain branches or when certain events happen. There are additional ones that we can get into, but those are pretty straightforward. The workflow dispatch one just allows you to actually run this manually from the GitHub Actions tab once we have an action file inside of the code. Then we actually get into the meat and potatoes of our GitHub action. And so a workflow, as it says here, run is made up of one or more jobs that can run sequentially or in parallel. In this case, we only have one job, it is build, but notice that there is that, tab-based relationship here where we have the build command inside, tabbed inside of the jobs command. Specifically, this is the name of the build, the name of the job that is running is actually called build. So we can go ahead and rename this to whatever we want. Let's just say job sample, why not? And then we get into some of the actual, in my opinion, the really cool parts of this stuff. So Ubuntu latest is, as it mentions here, the type of runner that your job will run on. So you can basically say that you want specific jobs to run in specific environments, or specifically on specific machines that have certain kinds of, specifications. Some of them will be able to run faster than others. Some of them will do better at certain kinds of operations as others. But for what we're doing, Ubuntu latest is the classic. And so what's actually happening under the hood is that GitHub is actually running these files for us. And we're at this point instructing what machine we want this file to run on. And so in this case, Ubuntu latest. And then within any particular job, we have a sequence of steps. And then this is the all of these steps comprise the single job, the single unit of work, and then you can have these be, rather simple, one step, or you can have them be, 20, 30, 50 steps, however many steps you want to accomplish whatever it is that you need. So again, we just have that, I just want to highlight that tab-based, nature here, where we have high-level jobs, a particular job, and then the runs on, the steps, any other kind of, inputs that we need to this particular job. They're all tabbed and indented in again. So inside of the step, one of the most common ones that we'll see here is we can actually just check out the code base. So it's important to note here that although this file is inside of your code base, it's not necessarily running on it until you have it run on it, right? It's actually just running on a particular machine that we don't actually own. We don't have our code on there. We don't have an environment set up on there. If you had certain environment variables set that your code on your machine was leveraging during a build process or something, you actually need to set all of those on the machine that's running for your code to work properly. But that's a little bit more advanced. We don't need to worry about that right now. But this is a pretty classic step here. We'll see here a different syntax, actions/checkout v3. And what's actually happening here is this individual step is actually basically leveraging, if you could imagine a library, a third-party tool that is within this actions / kind of concept, which is the GitHub Actions Marketplace. So simply Googling on a fresh tab, the GitHub Actions Marketplace, this is one of the reasons why GitHub Actions is so interesting to me, because A, GitHub Actions is free to use, and B, the marketplace here is basically, like an open source area for people, companies, groups, GitHub themselves, etc., to, contribute actions to. So we see here there are, over 20,000 results filtered by actions, and that actually means that there are all of these different libraries, all of these different, little, components basically that we can leverage inside of our own scripts that are already used, and in some cases, extremely powerful. And so if we go ahead and search for the checkout action, we can actually see here, well, there's a checkout v4 action, but we're using v3, no big deal. But you can go ahead and actually read documentation on it. You can see, you can get a sense of how popular it is with the stars. You can see the different contributors. You can actually even contribute to this action if you really cared for. And it has all this documentation around everything that you can possibly configure during your script when using this action. And then sometimes they'll even, they'll even show you little code snippets on how to actually, leverage this, how to use it inside of your script. All these very different, here you go, checkout with a different branch, checkout v4 with a reference to a particular branch. You can go ahead and pop that into any bit of, your CI, and it'll just work. It'll just work exactly how you expect. So it's really, really fun. It's really cool to see what is out there in the community. If you haven't looked around the GitHub Actions Marketplace, I absolutely would, recommend doing that. There's really some very interesting things. And the best part is then we can just, piece together these little Legos of functionality that people have built, and we can build pretty cool scripts with that. So that's what this one is using. It's basically like from the Android world importing another Gradle dependency, right? Importing retrofit, and now boom, you can make network requests. Perfect. You just have to slap this inside of your file, and now you can check out a repository. And then here we see, running a single command here and running a multiple set of commands here. So the script as a whole isn't really doing anything. It's actually doing nothing other than printing things to the console, but we get a little bit of a sense of what the structure is of a particular GitHub Actions file, and then also we'll obviously extend this to do something specific to the Android code base that we have here. And so I'm just going to go ahead and rename this to test CI. It's inside of the main file, the main branch here. We're just going to go ahead and commit changes. We'll commit them directly onto the main branch. Now that we actually have some, a file here, our action tab looks a little bit different, right? We actually have an overview of all of our actions here. We'll see all of our workflows. Don't know why it says T. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought we updated that to say sample CI. I guess I messed that up. Let's just go ahead and commit that as well. Let's bounce over to our actions tab again, and we will now see, yes, here we go. So the name of our CI, the sample CI workflow file, you can see it over here, and now you can actually even see the ones, right? This one is actually running. This one ran before. It's nice that these are running, but I don't actually know why they should not be running, right? Because we removed we removed this code. Somehow it's still in there. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just going to try to remove that again. I don't know exactly what's going on. It feels like some of the edits didn't really make it in there. But anyway, we are now going to commit that. Let's see at this point. Perfect. Now this workflow should not run anymore. But we were seeing that the reason these were running automatically is because we had them triggered for any pushes on the main branch. So obviously when we created it and when we updated it, those were pushes on the main branch. That's what triggered it. Anyway, if we click over to our sample CI, we can actually see that there's this little extra, page here, or a little extra part of this page that allows you to run the workflow. And that is specifically because of the workflow dispatch line right here that allows us to run it manually, as it mentions, in the Actions tab. So because we have that, we can actually go ahead, select Run Workflow. We can choose whatever branch we want, main for now, and we can click Run Workflow. And then we should see, one of these things pop up. Let's give it a second. Yeah, and there it is. We have, this little process actually, working. And then we saw that it is now successful. It completes. Again, it's a very, very small, very, very simple script, but we can actually see it, happening. If you actually click into the different areas inside of the script, we can now see the different steps, the different sections that this thing actually went through. You can click and expand it to see exactly what was happening. In the run a one-line script, right, it's actually running echo hello world, and then there we go, we have the hello world. We can then have the multi-line script, add another action to this build, test and deploy your project. We will get to that pretty shortly. And you can go ahead and, you can see some insights into the actual script itself. If you really wanted to, you can go ahead and download like the raw logs and actually see what's happening. This obviously didn't really do too much. It's just going to go ahead and run very quickly. Again, it ran in 3 seconds. So, we're just kind of scratching the surface of what's possible here. But that is basically it here for what GitHub Actions is, at least a small intro to it. The last little bit I will mention here, though, is if we flip over to our code base, we can actually go ahead and update our main branch. Did that with Control T or Command T on Mac. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. We will now see the one file update 3 commits, and inside of our project structure up here, we now see our .github, we see our workflows directory, and then we have our test CI. So we can even, build our CI flow and all of our different files inside of Android Studio. We can push them up, we can run them, we can observe them, we can make all the changes that we want. So, we can stay inside of Android Studio, do all the good stuff that we need, and then we can run them, or we can see all of the actions happening inside of our GitHub Actions little tab here in the repository. But that's about it. I want to keep it simple. In the next episode, we're going to go ahead and, expand on this, do something fun, maybe start running some tests. We'll eventually get into deploying. We could even do signing builds, deploying them to Google Play Store. You name it. You can really do anything that you want to do here, anything that you can imagine, or at least almost anything you can imagine. And it's super fun. It's super powerful. I'm very interested in it. And it's all for free at this point, so it's pretty powerful if you ask me. If you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate a like. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.